Loads of students make SBL far more complicated than it needs to be. And actually, making it simple is fine. So in this video, we're going to give you 5 ways to guarantee marks in SBL in a really simple and effective way. And we're going to give you little actions that you can take to make sure you're doing that. And at the end of this video, I'm going to reveal how Ben had a comical accident and has resulted in a cut on his head yet again. But before we get to that, Ben, you kick us off with our first bit of advice.
First up, it's answering the question. Now, the reason you have to answer the question if you're going to guarantee you earn marks is that the mark scheme will only have points in it that directly answer the question that's been set. If you go down the wrong path, if you make a point that doesn't answer the question, it will not score. So you have to answer the question. Obvious, right? But then how do you make sure you do that? Well, I've got 2 really simple tips for you. The first one is have an answer structure, subheadings, that links back to the specific requirement. That encourages you to get off on the right foot, to make a point that's relevant. But then the even better tip, the second tip, is each point that you make, explain how it answers the specific question. So if the question is matters to consider, what matters should we consider when we're making this decision? Each point in your answer, you finish off by saying, consider this because. And that final sentence is you bringing it back to answering the question to make it more likely you score marks.
Advice number 2, we need to make sure we're using the exhibits. So in order to do this, what you're going to do, every time you are writing a little sentence, remember short, concise paragraphs are great in SBL, make sure you're linking to the exhibits. You're using something from the exhibits. Now that might be a little fact. It might be referencing a number. It might be relating to some information they provided. But whatever it is, in every single paragraph, you're linking that. Now, the way that this guarantees you marks is that the examiner repeatedly, in every single exam report I've seen, says generic answers do not earn marks. If you're just reciting theory or just churning out stuff that you've learned and not applying the scenario, they say, no, you're not getting any marks. So by using the facts from the exhibits and referencing the stuff they've given you on exam day, you are making the markers happy. They're going to, yes, have they linked it? Yes, they have. So therefore, you're going to pick up more marks.
Next up, it's add depth to your analysis. Now, the reason you have to do this, and it will guarantee you marks, is that each point in SBL, in the mark scheme, says up to 2 marks per well-explained point. 2 marks per point. But how do you get up to 2 marks? That requires you to add analysis and to add depth, the kind of so what type points into your answer. Now, if your answer is really superficial, bland, doesn't go into enough depth and enough detail, then you are not going to get up to that magic 2 marks for the good points that you do make. Now, a simple tip for adding extra depth onto your analysis is to consider the impact on wider stakeholders. So how is someone else impacted by this point? How is another group, like the customer or the supplier or the shareholder, how is that group impacted by this thing? And by adding that in, it can help you to get up to a second point and a second mark for your answer.
Next up is time management. Now, SBL isn't necessarily the most time-pressured exam out there in ACCA. Some of the other papers are crazily time-pressured, but that doesn't mean that you need to just run free and just do what you want. You need to be really disciplined with your timing. So my top tip for you here is to make a note of the time that you've allocated yourself for each requirement. So break down your timings, and that's something we do in Club SBL is we provide some advice on the timings and also then practice them to time throughout. But making sure that you then stick to that. And I really like writing down the time I'm going to stop. So I'll say, right, I'm doing 20 minutes on this particular requirement. Make a little note, right, when the clock gets down to 1:23, I need to move on. So really doing that, and not just doing that and then forgetting about it. You need to keep checking. So whenever I do questions to time, I'm constantly looking at the clock, looking at the clock. How long have I got? How am I doing? Because a lot of students get so in the zone, they look up and go, ah, I was meant to move on 5 minutes ago. So being really disciplined, writing it down, being really disciplined is important. Now, this is a particular risk sometimes, and this sounds a bit strange, but with really easy questions. Some questions in SBL, you think, this is lovely. I could write about this all day. And you've learned so much. You've got so much knowledge that you want to pass on that then actually you completely overrun. So sometimes you've got to be careful. If you see a question that you really like, just just bear in mind, right, I've got to be strict here. I can't overrun with this because that's going to be important. Now, the way that this helps you, the way this helps you guarantee you marks is if you stick to your timings, you're going to answer every requirement. You're going to do all 100 marks in SBL. And if you do that, you only need to get half of them right to pass. Whereas if you only answer 70 marks in this exam, suddenly you're having to get 50 out of 70 right, which is way, way harder. So it's important that you do give everything a go. You're going to have a much better chance of passing.
Lastly, keep it really simple. You want to be making very obvious, simple, straightforward points in your answer. Don't go for the complicated stuff. Now, the reason this guarantees you marks is that the simple, obvious things that flow naturally from the scenario facts, those things are more likely to be in the mark scheme. And the marker is expecting to see them because they've seen them in lots of other students' scripts and they've seen them in the guidance they were given by the examiner before they started marking. So you're making the marker's life really easy by putting the things in your answer that they're expecting to see. Those simple, obvious things are much more likely to score. So a couple of tips for you here to how do you come up with simple analysis? When the point comes into your mind, when you're thinking of it, when you're planning, if you think, oh, this is really clever, I'm really, this is a chance to show off, danger. Like, that is not going to be something you want in your answer. You need to be saying really straightforward things that you always think, this is so obvious, surely it's too obvious and too simple to score. That's a great point. Anything where you go, ooh, look at me, I've really got it, I'm showing off how brainy I am, that's the kind of thing you really, really want to avoid. Now, another way of keeping your answer really simple, this is my second tip here, is to just have one idea in each part of your answer. So each point just has one idea in it. It isn't, I've got this thing and then another thing and then another thing in a long sentence that kind of drifts away. 1 point, one idea. Right, keeping it really simple and direct makes it easier to mark. You are more likely to score marks that way.
Great. So there are 5 ways to guarantee marks. Now, we've given you all this advice. What you now need to do is practice using it. So there's no point just listening to all this and thinking, great, I'll just use that on exam day. You now need to go away and practice that and do that. And if you can get it marked, brilliant. We love marking scripts at Club SBL, give our students loads of feedback, and we're giving them all these little bits of advice in order to help them pass. Now, if you want to have that and our guidance on how to do this, you can join us at Club SBL. We're going to be putting out loads more free resources on our YouTube as well. So either way, you're going to be in a really good position to pass SBL. Now, at the very start of this video, Ben, I promised these guys that you're going to reveal how you've got this cut on your head. And if anyone wants to guess before I reveal or Ben reveals how he did this, then that's fine. It was a sporting injury, but not a sporting injury in a cool way, I'd say. More a sporting injury
Pretty
in
lame.
a Mr. Bean type way, I'd say.
Yeah, I
So
hit
Ben, go on.
myself. I was playing golf. One of my favorite sports, and I hit myself over the head with my own putter. And a putter, if you've ever played golf, is the club you use to hit the ball to sort of nudge it along the ground and push it into the hole. It's not even a club that you swing anywhere. And I bashed myself accidentally with the end of my putter, and now I have this. And now it's out here forever in this video.
Perfect. Right, thanks ever so much for watching. Again, subscribe to our channel for more videos where we give you advice on how to pass SBL, especially in the build-up to your exam when the pre-scene's getting released. We'll be revealing all our insights and advice on your pre-scene nearer the exam date as well. So thanks for watching and best of luck with your studies.